Colorado River District.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you very much. And can we please have a roll call, Stephanie?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Okay. Alden Vandenbrink. Doug Monger.
Here.
John Ely. John Ely. Kathleen Curry.
Here.
Kathy Chandler Henry.
Here.
Mark Catlin. Mark Rober.
Here.
Martha Whitmore. Mike Richard.
Here.
Reby Hazard.
Here.
Scott McGinnis.
Here.
Stan Winery. Steve Beckley.
Cindy's first niece not there now.
Steve Beckley.
Here. I'm here.
Taylor Haas.
Here.
Tom Gray.
Okay.
And Alden is joining right now.
Great. Thank you. We do have a quorum. I expect that we will see Director Gray and Director Whitmore and Director Catlin are going to join us as they are able. All right, you should have received for this meeting the agenda, memo from Zane, memo from Peter and Andy with attachments of the draft drought security legislation and confidential memo. So we will start with the legislative update on from External Affairs. Zane.
Thank you, Madam President. I will try to move quick today, recognizing that we have a lot to discuss, and I do want to express my appreciation for the board's willingness to extend today's meeting. I think we're going to need to take some time on things other than the 2 or 3 bills I have in front of you. So with your permission, Madam President, I will move straight into our legislation for consideration.
Thank you.
The first bill for the board's review and consideration of a position is Senate Bill 177. This is a pretty easy decision for us most years. I don't know that we've ever opposed a CWCB projects bill, but this is the annual list of projects that have been identified to receive funding through the CWCB's construction fund. It includes $15 million for the Upper Colorado and San Juan endangered fish recovery programs. It's got some funding for cloud seeding and Messinet, as well as a handful of other more technical programs that our team relies on and works closely with. It does importantly have $10.6 million in revenue from sports betting under Proposition DD that will be devoted to water plan implementation cash fund, or from the cash fund to water plan implementation grants program. My recommendation on this is support. I would ask if before the board makes a decision, if we can offer an opportunity for any others from the public to comment if there are such comments.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay, I don't see any. And anyone from the public who'd like to make a comment or ask a question, just raise your hand and we will recognize you. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised from public. And if you're on the phone, I think you're just going to have to shout out and we'll recognize you. Okay, I'll take a motion from the board.
I'll move staff recommendation to support.
Okay, motion by Taylor Haas.
I'll second it.
And second by Director Curry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, the motion is passed for support.
The second bill for your consideration today is Senate Bill 178. This is a water-wise landscaping and HOA communities legislation. This is in line with a number of other legislative efforts we've seen in years past to try to incentivize residential water use, outdoor water use. It does require that an HOA allow the use of non-vegetative landscaping and limits how community covenants can restrict xeriscaping by unit owners. In my analysis, I provided a list of the things that it does not do, as well as it does not prohibit the use of non-vegetative turf grass in the backyard of a unit owner's property. It does not require the use of hardscape or more than on more than 20% of landscaping, and it allows property owners an option to develop landscaping that is consistent with HOA plans that would be adopted by the HOAs of at least 80% drought tolerant plantings. I think this is my recommendation on this bill is to support the bill. I think it's another example of where our communities in Colorado and specifically on the Western Slope can lead by example in conservation. I think we all recognize that xeriscaping in HOAs is not going to solve the issues on the big river, but it's an important signal that we're willing to, again, lead by example with regards to the conservation of our water resources. So staff recommendation on this is to support Senator Jaquez Lewis, and our own Senator Perry Will have done a good amount of stakeholding on this. And as of right now, it looks like it's in a position to move forward.
Great, thank you. And I'll note that QQ did take a position of support on this last week as well. Comments or questions from the board? Director Munger.
Yeah, just quickly, Zane. So the homeowners association, this was a pet peeve of mine for a long time, but homeowners associations that had mandated having those turf grasses and the rest, will they have to then, with this new law, then reevaluate their positions on that?
It's my understanding that it would leave it up to the HOA boards. They are required to permit at least 3 designs. So this is not a voluntary program. I'll note that for the board. They're required to permit at least 3 designs that would be approved by the HOA that interested residents could utilize going forward. So there's extensive design templates available through Colorado State Extension. They've built in CSU Extension into the legislation so that those designs that already exist can be pointed to by the HOA if and when a resident comes to the board requesting or with a desire to do drought tolerant design on their landscaping. Does that answer your question, Director Munger?
Yep, that's fine. Thank you, Zane. So, yep.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the board? Comments from anyone else in the audience who would like to remark on Senate Bill 178? Okay. Seeing none, I will ask for a motion from the board.
Move staff recommendation. This is Curry.
Director Curry, and we have a second.
Second, Ely.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, great. All right, seeing no opposed, the motion passes unanimously. And I believe we have one more.
The last bill that I wanted to bring to your attention, staff is not recommending a position on it at this time, is House Bill 1242, Water Conservation and Oil and Gas Operations. This is a bill that requires the COGCC and applicants to the COGCC to adhere to some more stringent reporting criteria, as well as reduce the amount of fresh water they're using in oil and gas production while simultaneously increasing the amount of recycled or produced water they're using in exploration and production operations. This is, I will just be as candid as possible. This is a tough issue. I don't see any reason why the industry cannot be more efficient, but this is an environmental bill that doesn't appear to have the traditional environmental players at the Capitol on board with it. This is being brought by a single group off the Front Range that is more of a, well, I will just say non-traditional environmental organization. I can't tell at this moment whether this bill has legs. I have concerns with some of the requirements, while also understanding that this is an industry that has the ability to potentially reduce their amount of freshwater use. My recommendation right now is to monitor this. I'd be happy to bring this back to the board if we see that it's moving in one direction or another. But that's my recommendation for the time being. More than anything, I wanted you all to be aware of the legislation, as we will not have a meeting before it is calendared, I believe, a week from today. But I think there's a lot to be determined on this one.
Comments or questions? We have a staff recommendation to monitor. Okay, any comments, questions from anyone else in our meeting?
Well, this is Munger. I move we approve staff recommendation, and I assume we'll be undertaking this again at our next meeting if it hasn't gone somewhere.
Yes.
We have a motion by Munger. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Rober, I believe that was. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we will take a monitor position on that bill, and I will note that Tom Gray, Director Gray, has joined us some time ago, but I forgot to welcome him, so he's here as well. All right, next up on our agenda, we have General Manager's update, if any. Andy, do you have anything for us under that item?
Yeah, I just have a short update. The board was sent a copy of a letter received from Director Mitchell from the CWCB last Friday evening. And it contained in it what we consider a substantial reversal of the commissioner's commitment to the district to participate in the approval of and substantive review of the SCPP applications. Indicated in that she was informed, instead of having both the River District and the Southwest in their territory, and then the CWCB review these applications and approve or deny them. She indicated that the review would only be done by the CWCB and by our district, according to her, pursuant to what we would consider a conservation program. You'll be familiar with that, where our district has previously approved conservation efforts in all areas of our district where people are engaging in conservation activities, pilot programs, things like that, so that they don't run the risk of having their water rights abandoned or that non-use held against them in a historic consumptive use analysis. That I think was disturbing to us, because it was a reversal of a commitment that had been made in early December by the commissioner. And would say that last night we, several of us, attended virtually the CWCB board meeting, where after an hour and a half of an executive session, the board came out and unanimously approved that the system conservation program was part of a conservation program sponsored by the CWCB. They did not review or discuss or analyze any of the individual applications. They informed the public during that meeting that they thought that that was solely the UCRC's job, and that no one agency in our state would be reviewing those documents to protect other water users from non-injury, address potential community impacts or other secondary impacts that this board and the public and the CWCB had previously identified as important issues presented when dealing with systematic conservation programs. I would say that we got a spreadsheet and a memo that kept getting revised right up until, I think, during the meeting yesterday, the CWCB meeting, by staff at CWCB, that had a spreadsheet and very opaque references to the applications that were contained therein. Best I can glean, most of the applications came from within our district. A handful came from within the Southwest. 0 came from the Front Range or anywhere else in the state that relies upon Colorado River water. There weren't a massive amount of water, but there is a complete lack of process within our state reviewing this program or the potential impacts to other water users. And in fact, in response to written comments, and Peter Fleming testified, as did Beth Van Bers for Southwest, about the need for better process. I will say there were comments in recognition by a number of the directors and even Commissioner, the commissioner herself, who said, look, this process could have had better transparency. It could have had better process. It was a flawed process. And just looking at some quotes from that meeting last night, that many of the CWCB directors understood from their previous discussions in January that they would in fact be reviewing the applications and the projects. And they were told apparently in executive session that it would in fact only be a review of the entire program and whether or not that program qualified under their conservation program authority in the statute. So there was no analysis done whatsoever to protect communities and other water users. Nonetheless, the board, recognizing that it was completely flawed, said, well, you know, the UCRC is being asked by Becky, they don't have it actually scheduled, but is being asked by Commissioner Mitchell to hold a public meeting. And so a non-governmental entity outside of our state, located in the city of Salt Lake with 3 employees, is going to be holding a public meeting at which they'll receive comment from our citizens about this program before they make final approval on all those applications. Pretty shocking to those of us here at the district, but I would recommend, quite frankly, before you make any determination or other actions, I would recommend that you seek legal advice on this matter, because I think there are some significant issues that are raised by this action and by the action by the CWCB. So I would suggest to you that that might be the end of my public general manager's report, and that you might turn to your general counsel and in an executive session, but that's up to you.
Thank you very much, Director Bueller. Comments from the board, and one thing that I'd like to throw out there is for us to think about a response directly from the board. Our staff has very competently and with long hours been dealing with this issue since we got a letter directly from our UCRC Director Mitchell. I believe it's incumbent upon the board to respond to that as well. And that's perhaps something that we want to take up with our legal advice to know what the content of that letter might look like. But other comments from the board on this public report from our general manager? Okay. Seeing none, then I believe the next item on our agenda is our general counsel's update. And so Peter, I will turn that over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did see that Director Curry had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Director Curry.
It's all right. Thank you. I just wondered if the applications are public documents that we could review anyway.
Excellent question, Director Curry. My read, for what it's worth, of the Colorado Open Records Act is that, yes, those were subject to KORA. Several entities, including, I believe, Heather Sackett, who's on this call working for Aspen Journalism, has submitted KORA requests to the state of Colorado, who have denied those KORA requests and claim some form of deliberative process privilege over the applications for a federally funded, state-sponsored program. So that's the state's position, and in fact, they have refused to provide those documents to us as well. We haven't submitted a KORA, but should this board direct us to do that, we could certainly do that. And if you were to direct counsel after being advised, we wouldn't be afraid of filing a lawsuit under KORA either.
Great, thank you for that. And I will note also that we have Director Whitmore with us now as well. All right, I don't see any other hands up, so we'll turn it back to our General Counsel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would make a recommendation that the board convene into executive session to discuss the items listed on agenda tab 3A pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402 paren 4B and E, 4B and 4E.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved, Vandenbrink.
Moved by Vandenbrink, and who is the second?
Hazard.
Thank you. Second by Director Hazard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are now in executive session and into the room.
This meeting is being recorded.
Madam President, it appears that the public have been let back in out of the waiting room, and you are now being recorded. Peter, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Andy and Madam President. During the executive session of the River District's board meeting today, the board discussed with staff and council the item listed on your agenda tab 3A. There were a couple of items under which the board discussed the possibility of taking public action, and I could take those separately with a recommendation if you would, if that is appropriate.
Yes, thank you.
The first would be a recommendation that if and when the applications for system conservation proposals are made available publicly in more detail, or really in any detail, that River District staff and council review them to the extent they are able to in the time appropriate, and provide any input that we can to the Upper Colorado River Commission at its anticipated public meeting, but that the primary response will be that likely that the criteria employed by the Upper Colorado River Commission does not consider the impacts within the state of Colorado and the potential issues within the state of Colorado of the applications that have been received. I know that's long. I hope I summarized that correctly.
Yes, I think so. And do we need a vote on that, or just as direction to staff?
A vote would be appropriate.
Okay. Do we have a motion for staff recommendation regarding a letter of concern to the UCRC?
So Munger moves staff recommendation there.
Second, Richard.
All right, seconded by Director Richard. Any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, any opposed?
Aye.
Was that last motion oppose or a late approval?
That was
Catlin approval.
All right, thank you, Director Catlin. All right, the motion is approved, and that's direction to staff regarding a letter of concern to the UCRC. And our second item.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the clarification there. The second item would be that the board direct that a response be provided in due course to the letter that the board received from CWCD Director and Commissioner Mitchell.
Great. Thank you. Any comments, questions regarding that direction to staff? Okay, do we have a motion?
Hazard motion.
Motion by Director Hazard. Anita's looking for a second.
Second, Gray.
All right, second by Director Gray. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that motion passes as well. I think that is the end of our agenda for today, and I thank all the public who sat through this with us this afternoon. We appreciate that. And directors, thank you for your additional hour of time today and for thinking through all of this. All right, so we are, Andy or Peter saying anything further?
Nothing further, Madam President. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate the fact that this board has now had 3 meetings in 3 weeks, and 2 of them were over 2 hours long. So appreciate your indulgence on these issues. It's some critical stuff. So thank you.
Great.
Completely
Thank
agree.
you all.
Your guidance is essential, and thank you all for your time.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.